Very warm welcome from my side to the fourth of the MusiQuE Webinar. I'm Michaela Hahn from the MusiQuE Board. I'm the EMU representative on the board, and today the topic is Standard of Pre-College Music Education. And I first want to give the floor to Matthias Lundqvist, who had the initiative for this webinar. A very warm welcome, and please, could you shortly explain what the initiative is?
Yes, thank you very much. As being a secretary of the Young Music Talents in Europe, the organization, or starting a young organization for pre-college schools throughout Europe, we are working towards highlighting the pre-college as a sector, showing that it's an important sector in the music education system, and we are equally working to formalize the pre-college sector, the pre-college programs, so that they fit neatly into the qualification frameworks that we have nationally and of course also in Europe. The Musik and the Quality Enhancement review system is a very good way of actually doing what we are working for. As of now, there are two pre-college schools in The Hague and Lugano that have run through the review, and it will be very interesting to hear their experiences, and hopefully that can inspire more of us to see if a preview or the Musik system can also be applied for individually, because the more of us that run through this program, the review system, then we will be a stronger voice on the music education scene in Europe. So we very much welcome this webinar and are eager to hear more about the experiences from the schools in Lugano and Hague, and also of course from Musik as an organization.
Thank you so much, Matthias. And yeah, we also thought it was a very important initiative, as we know that the pre-college standards are not only important for the music universities, but of course also to the EMU as European Music School Union, to AES, EAS from the European schools. So we are very much looking forward to this webinar, and the program, as I can shortly tell you, will be the experiences from the two reviewed institutions, and then we'll have some more information about the standards and review procedures, and then at the end there will be a longer Q&A session and hopefully discussions. Yes, we first want to show you a little bit about music, and we have prepared, the staff has prepared a presentation, which Linda is already sharing. Thank you. It's about music quality enhancement with the new logo that we have and the wonderful website that we all invite you to visit. Music works internationally, and it's about enhancement of the quality of music education, and we provide external evaluation and quality enhancement services. And one of the programs that can be reviewed are the pre-college programs within music universities. The founding members of the Musik was, of course, AEC, Pearl, EMU, and EAS is a partner that has joined us in the last years. And within the board, all these partners are also represented. We have Jacques Moreau, who is also with us today, the chairman, and then we have, there are three members from AEC, and there is a student representative, which you see here is Anka Arokiam, and then we have the three partner institutions, which are also represented in the board. That's Momchil from Pearl, it's me from European Music School Union, and Gerhard Sammer from EAS. And we also have a great staff. Linda is the director We have Anna, who is with us today, and Basia, and Krina, who is a review officer. So really wonderful staff who has also prepared this webinar. Yes, and of course, the most important people for music are the peer reviewers. Here's a picture from one training. So all really experts and long-term experts in the field of music enhancement, music quality enhancement. And we are very proud of the group that we have and are really central to the reviews. Yes, we have already done the introduction round. So, and I have shortly run you through the program. So the first speaker that we have is Annick van Gennip. She's head of the department at the School for Young Talent at the Royal Conservatoire of The Hague. And the site visit by the music review team was in November 2016. As the School for Young Talent commissioned music to conduct an institutional quality enhancement review in the context of their 60th anniversary, seizing this occasion to launch a reflective process on its achievements of the past years and how to continue to develop in the future. At the same time, it was the opportunity to test the standards of pre-college review for the first time that music had established. So the institution also provided really important and valuable feedback to music on the standards and the procedures. And please take the floor, Annick van Gennip. We are very happy that you're here with us today.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the introduction. I think the last part of your story sort of sums it all up. Well, we started this whole idea of this evaluation in 2015, I think. My predecessor, who was Anthony Zeehorst, some of you perhaps know him. He was, for a long time, he was one of the founders of the YMTE. He came into Young KC, so the Young Talent Department of The Hague. He built up a lot. He made the apartment a lot bigger. And in the Netherlands, you have people who come over to evaluate what you're doing. But we have people who came over and they evaluated the whole school part of what we were doing. So basically all of our secondary school and our primary school. And we had people coming over for the bachelor, and they were reviewing the music side. But nobody was there to make a review on what we did in the pre-college phase for music. And that was really what Anthony was looking for. Like, I've built something up and I've worked for this for years, but how can I test this? How can I see what other people are doing? How do we evaluate us and what we do? And that was the reason why he really went looking for an evaluation. And that's when he came to Musik. And then this whole process started, but we didn't think, we had no clue what we were getting into at some point. So we had to think, how can we show what we do? How can we show who we are? So we started this whole process of making a self-evaluation at first. And so we went over every department, every section that we had. We talked with parents, we talked with teachers, we talked with each other a lot. And we came up with a self-evaluation that we sent in. Then we had I think it was for about a week or a day or 4, that Musik was really in the school. And we organized all sorts of activities. So they were able to speak with staff members. They were able to speak with teachers, with students. They visited lessons, individual lessons, group lessons, exams. They were basically everywhere. In the beginning, we had talks. At the end, we have talks. And then came the review. I think the review to us was, it was really helpful in terms of where are we standing and how do other people evaluate us. And also it gave us the tools to go to the next step. And we are now in 2023. When my predecessor started, who was not Anthony, after Anthony, there was another head of music. He was really given the task. This report is so helpful and the steps that there's sort of a direction and a guideline that they're sending us into. And this is really what we like for you to follow and come up with the ideas. You can really make it your own. And because we are a Dutch school, some of the things, we have to take into consideration that if somebody from England reviews you, they have a sort of, well, you have to look into cultural differences and school differences and stuff, but you can really make it into your own. And now we're in 2023. I started in 2022 for this job in November. And again, they gave me this as a guideline. So that's what is interesting to me is it's been 7 years and still this is so helpful, which is why I really understand why Matthias says it's so good for every school to go through this process, to really look into yourself. What are my goals? What are the things that we're doing good? What are the things we need help with? Another point of view, and it's going to be helpful for many years. Excuse my voice, by the way. I have a cold. I sound terrible, but normally I sound a little better. But yeah, from my point of view, in summary, this is it, I think.
Thank you so much, Annick, for sharing your experiences, and you picked up very important items that are really special for music, and are really like sort of the pillars of the review procedures. Are there any questions from our participants directly to this statement from Annick, or something you want to maybe clarify? Yes, please, Matthias, and then Jacques.
It's been 7 years, you said, since the review. Are there things that you have changed and which make you want to do the review again? And that's one question. And the other, how do you use the review outwards?
Outwards, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there are a few things we really changed. One of the things that they said was we did this whole self-evaluation, and they said, but you need to make it a self-evaluation of everybody. Is it the voice that everybody speaks in your department? That was really helpful, because what we did now, and the answer was we could have done that better. What we see now is that we have more staff meetings, more, meetings is a word. We have more groups that we form with many teachers from the different ages, so that we have more of a joint voice. We talk a lot. We have topics that we really, we want everybody's opinion on, and what is the sort of the voice that we have, and that is something we really talk about, and what you can now see resonating through the department more, and you hear it from the students and you hear it from the parents, and that's when you see that it works. So it takes time to put that into motion, but that was a really helpful suggestion. Practically, they said, you need to reevaluate how you work into chamber music. So we've made a completely different program for chamber music. We've had a consultant coming in about 1.5 years ago, and she made a whole different kind of review of the department. So for now, basically, we're good. We've had many feedback and suggestions on where we can go to in the future. So at this moment, I would say, because we've had the consultant as well, another review will be too soon. But that's only because we've had another one. If you have this sort of process within every 4 or 5 years, to me, that would make big sense, because it also keeps you on your toes, because otherwise it's very nice to have all this feedback and all these ideas that you can work into, but if you just put it into the cupboard, which just happens at some point, I think you don't take everything out of it what you can. So if you have this sort of routine that it comes by every 4 or 5 years, to me that would make sense. What we do with it outwards, I don't really know what you mean by that.
do you use it in marketing and talking about your own school? Do you sort of refer to the MusiQuE Board?
Well, yeah, we absolutely do. We also use it in terms to work with our government, because there's always, they do the evaluations of our school, but then only for the school part. And then we can really say, look, we also have other people looking in, we have this music report. So we do use it to make sure to everybody that we take our level of education really seriously. And that's what we also present to parents. Yeah, we do.
Thank you, Jacques. Please.
Yes, it was quite on the outcomes of the report. Within the, you spoke of the process helping by the self-evaluation report, but from the standards, you have many standards on the for the review. Could you do you have one or two that were the main insights of the experts within your own process of the school, which you have some issues that came out? You spoke of chamber music, but do you have some others you could point out from that report that you are currently changing things on that?
Yeah.
From that.
Yeah, of course, the chamber music was very practical. This idea of what is, who are you as a department, and does everybody share this feeling, and does everybody share these thoughts? I thought that was a very big deal about the report. Another thing what they said was, you have so many good teachers and so many possibilities within the building, and some of you have now seen our new building. It's even more advanced. There's so many possibilities. How do you make sure that you take everything out of the opportunities and out of the quality of the teachers that you have, and put that towards the students? And this is a big question, and this is something that on a daily basis we work on. And you have many different insights of how you can look into this. So that's really a big one. And also after that comes the quality of, what do you want as the quality for your students? And we say we are the school for young talent, and they really suggested, is this word talent? Is it something you should use? Does this represent you? So it brings up a lot of questions. And really takes, you have to really have deep conversations with everybody you do this with. Who are we, and where do we want to go? So that you really are vision and mission based, and that's what they pointed out to us. Is that an answer to your question?
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions from participants? I just have another question for you, Annick. As the pre-college has a student community which is younger than the usually music university very often, did you find specific topics that were centered on how to involve students within the process, or even parents sometimes? I don't know.
In the process of the evaluation?
Yes.
Yeah, we had students, both students and parents representative. It's something, and that was also a critical point that they said we can do that more.
Mm-hmm.
We could have done that more, but we have this board of parents who are, well, they come together about every 6 weeks, I think. We have a board of students now who come together, but this is stuff we've changed since then. Yeah, so we invited a couple of parents back then, and a couple of students, and they gave their reviews and their feedback, and they talked with the music board. But we have this now more on a regular basis.
Thank you. Any more questions that have occurred? Well, then, thank you so much, Annick, for sharing your experiences. And we're to the second institution. Warm welcome to Christoph Brenner, He's a general director at the Conservatorio della Svizzera, Italiana in Lugano. The site visit was in 2018, and the Conservatory commissioned Music to organize a program quality enhancement review of the Scuola Universitaria di Musica programs, and separately also a review of its pre-college program. And this was the first time a Swiss pre-college program has been the subject of an international review. The rationale for the pre-college program review was centered on the desire of the Conservatory to raise both the awareness of the pre-college program and also support for the creation of a national pre-college label, that famous talent card in Switzerland, which is, we have discussed in EMU quite often, which is really a role model for many countries. So I'll give the floor to Christoph. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. May I ask? Okay, perfect. Yes, our pre-college department has been created in '99, and it became an autonomous department of our foundation in 2008. So autonomous departments means that there's a special funding, there are special contracts, so there's no automatic automatism for teachers of the University of Music or of the General Music School to become a teacher of the pre-college. It's very clearly separated. You have 55 study places. There's numerous clauses. Actually, there are a little bit less students, so that's a consequence of the pandemic. It's only that from last summer that the number of admissions was bigger than the number of people leaving. A special clause in Switzerland for the Swiss label is that 2/3 of people entering the pre-college must pass an entrance exam in the University of Music. So that's a quality criterion, which is very, which is challenging for a 4 years program. It shouldn't be a problem for a 1 year program. So now in the pandemic period, it's a little bit more more challenging. Yes, may I? Okay. Why peer review? So it's in some way, as Michaela said, we had an accreditation for the University of Applied Sciences and Arts. We are affiliated as a university, so we wanted to have a peer review before with specialists, as the accreditation procedure was not with specialists for music activities, and I must say this was very very helpful. And as we did the work, so we said, okay, let's add us to the pre-college, and especially because we knew that we would have to do an accreditation in Switzerland for this for the label pre-college music Swiss CH, so for Switzerland, Swiss label for pre-college programs, and to do the peer review with Musik was very very helpful in the way that the procedure with Musik was, I would say, more demanding than the Swiss procedure. So what we did helped us a lot afterwards, also in the Swiss procedure. So the main aspect was that we had to do to prepare all the materials. So a lot of the documents of the materials. So for example, also in a quality quality system. So we didn't have anything special. Also for pre-college, we had something for university, and so this helped us to have a more common activity for all the departments. And then here there's an error. So we had the master program accreditation 2010. So this was not with Musik, it was with the Swiss agency, but the experts were coming from AC. And the big advantage, if you're doing an accreditation or a program review with people coming from your sector, so from the music sector, you can be much more self-critic. So because you know that people understand what you are speaking about, and normally if you are doing an accreditation with people coming from other sectors, you're much more careful on your own would say on the things you have to improve. So these were the most recent results of the procedure. So awareness of the strengths and of our weaknesses, and especially of the challenges of the program. And let's say there was no pressure on doing this peer review. It was our decision to do it, and this gave us the possibility to have really very frank and very let's say very not stressful at all discussion with the board of experts. So all the discussions were very open, and it was a good, let's say, a good possibility to speak, to discuss with people, knowing their job, which have another background. The procedure gave us a very solid base for the procedure in Switzerland. So actually in Switzerland we have, I think there are 10 or 12 schools which got this label in the meantime, and which was very important inside department. This procedure helped us to strengthen identification within the department. So people working in the pre-college, students joining pre-college, they got identity as pre-college students, as pre-college teachers, and also in the staff. So it, in some way, this department has always been between the University of Music and the General Music School, and this procedure helped us to have a better, also a much stronger standing inside our foundation. Then at the end was marketing. So marketing in the sense that towards politics. So to show that we have an international level. Actually, we have still quite intense discussion with our politics about the status of pre-college, which was one of the most important aspects also in the Swiss procedure. So we are still considered in our region as a free time activity, also at the pre-college, and which is quite embarrassing. And so what we are doing is also to get out of this, let's say, corner that it's nice to make music, but it's not really something demanding. And so what we are doing is to underline that pre-college students are doing as people which are doing sport at a high level, a very important and competitive activity. Actually, maybe of last developments, it's for on one side it's very interesting to see that we are becoming more and more international, also as a pre-college. So this year we had the student coming from 15 or 16-year-old coming from Sweden to start the pre-college here. So starting as a high school in another language. We have some Italian students coming and moving to Como, so near the border, to do the high school there, to join our pre-college. We have people coming from or demanding from Greece, from Russia, and so on. So in some way, the trend we have already at the university for many years now is reaching also the pre-college. At the other side, people which are doing our pre-college, they are leaving for Vienna, for Berlin, for Paris. So it's the last year, I must say, the pre-college scene got more and more international, which is in some way a good thing, in some way also a bad thing, because I think that young people should have the opportunity to do this period of their education inside their normal social environment without having to leave. So I would say that these are my points. Maybe last point, we are a private foundation. We have 3 departments. Only the university has a public mandate, and the pre-college is in some way directed together with my colleague who is chairing the music school. So it's not directed by the university. It's not directed by the music school, but it's in some way a joint venture, if you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christoph, for sharing. And I'm sure this special positioning between institutions or between the chairs, this is something which many institutions can have the same experience for pre-college programs, which are sort of in between. Alf, you have a question to Christoph, please.
Yes, very interesting to listen to your process and your history. And I would like to hear a little bit more about this Swiss label. You said it was 10 or 12 schools, but you also mentioned accreditation, but at the same time mentioned that it's looking as a activity on the outside of the formal. So I was wondering, is the exams you do and all of this, is that a common one for all the 10 or 12 Swiss label school, or is it internal in each school? And is it recognized by the authorities in education as something worth anything towards their curriculum?
Sorry, maybe I have to add some aspects. So we had you know, in Switzerland you vote on everything, so that it's a direct democracy. So we had in 2012 votation on the music education. So there was a constitutional article on music and education. So that means that this has been offered. And one of the aspects which have been voted was the promotion for talents. And now I've been part of the Federal Commission, so we had many proposals, and one was the status for pre-colleges. But now in 10 years, not many things happened for talents. So at some point, our conference, so the conference of music universities, I was president at this time. And the Association of Music Schools, which was chaired by Christine Buer, we decided to create a label for pre-college. So as we were quite embarrassed by the lack of movement by the authorities, so it's this label has been created in some way to put some pressure also in the politics. So now, last year, the first program for talents by the Confederation has been published, and the label pre-college is one of the criteria. So in some way, we were successful in imposing this label in the market. So for the rest, Switzerland, as I think Austria, Germany, they're federal countries. So every canton in our case has special legal aspects. So it means that pre-college in some canton can be, or also music schools are part of the education, and in our canton not yet. But this means that we are working on towards this aim, this objective. And so to answer to your question, it's some way it's we decided to create this label. We decided to get it. We made it also quite hard to get it. So there are some criteria which are very difficult. And you need at least 10 people every year entering, and you need 67% of success rate, so people entering music university, and this also to help a process of concentration, so to avoid that in some regions there were 10 schools offering pre-college program, each of them with 2 students. Maybe one in violin and one in guitar, and so these were the aims of the program. Did I answer to your question? Okay.
Yeah, what is I think especially interesting is your partnership with the music schools in this label, which is quite exceptional and really a role model for many countries. So congratulations for that initiative. Another question to Christoph, maybe. Yeah, Ivana.
Yes, you've been talking about the international aspects of students coming from abroad. How do you handle that? Because they have also very often that problem that people are coming from different parts of Germany. We have some struggles with schools. And if you're talking about the international aspect, it's much more complicated. So how do you do that?
Yes, I must say this case we had this year from someone coming from Sweden who doesn't speak Italian, and we have a cooperation. We have cooperation with a private high school. And as public high school in this case was not possible, as there was no, I would say, public high school is getting much more expensive for people coming from abroad, as they don't pay taxes in Switzerland. So there are some difficult aspects. And Swiss, to get the Swiss high school degree, you need to know also second national language. So this meant that this young boy coming from Sweden, he had to learn not only Italian but also German or French, and but it seems to work. And let's say for Italian students the problem are less important, as they can live near the border. So there's 20 kilometers to Italian border. So in this case, there are not real problems. But now, of course, if you have students from other countries with other language problems, there's a question of we already had it also in the past, having people from Japan, for example. The question is tutoring, but if they are coming with their parents, so they need a permit to stay. The parents. We had one case of someone who wanted to come without parents, so minor. And in this case, you need a legal person who represents the legal aspects of this person. So that's always quite difficult. We don't have any general solutions, and normally also we try to avoid it. So it's not something we really promote. But it's a development we notice. I hope I answered to you.
We have some similar experiences. People coming from China or from Russia or from other countries, and so the legal problems in the countries with visas and representatives. So I thought you have now the main thing. We found it out and have a solution for us. We are all in the same boat.
Thank you, Ivana. Are there any more questions to Christoph? Not at the moment. Okay, so I give the floor to Linda for some more information about the pre-college standards and the review procedures.
Yes, thank you. I'm just my screen. Can you see the presentation? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to give you first a bit of history just to see where the whole process comes from. So basically, the creation of Musik indeed comes out of AEC. Initially, there were several working groups with many representatives of AEC members. They developed criteria, procedures meant for higher music education. These procedures and criteria were tested, and then they were further developed, and then they were also differentiated between standards for institutional review, standards for program review. There was a whole feasibility study completed to see whether it would be sustainable to create an independent evaluation body for higher music education. And all this led to the creation of Musik formally in 2014. And so before that, there were already some reviews, but they were done via AEC. And so today, now Musik is an independent body. Michaela explained who the partner organizations are. And so Musik is established itself as a foundation under Belgian law. The key aspect is really indeed the subject-specific perspective. It was really created because we identified gaps in between the generic way in which quality assurance agencies were dealing with quality and, on the other hand, the specificities of the sector and the, let's say, the special concept of quality, including artistic standards. We developed it in this stakeholder model with Pearl, MU, AEC, and EAS, also to make sure that we would involve the schools, the profession, other cultural actors than only the education side at higher education. And the key element is to bring in an international perspective. So we really believe that it's a big added value to include international perspectives in the debate and in the reflections in the school about improving quality. So at the moment, we have all these different set of standards to try to be as fit for purpose as possible. And I'll explain a little bit more for the last one, how it's been created. And so it was right after the creation of Musik in 2014, there was still a project that was led by AEC, which was called the Full Score Project. And within this project, there was one working group that was created, which was a joint working group, again, with EAS and MU, called Evaluation for Enhancement. And the idea was really to try to enhance the framework that was already there to other levels of music education. So on the one hand, to the pre-college level, and then on the other hand, to the music classroom teacher education. And so you can see the who were the members of this group. And then there was an entire process on how to develop such standards. Of course, the first idea was really to try to define what pre-college music education means, as it's understood differently across Europe. And so for this, there was this definition that the working group chose, that pre-college music education defines a stage of education which provides high-level specialized musical training to a level appropriate for entrance into higher music education, if a pupil so should choose. So this was the basis of the work. And then the idea was that we took the existing standards that MusiQuE was using for institutional and also for program review at higher education level. And we looked in every detail and make sure that we were adjusting them so that they would be fit for purpose for the pre-college music education, and also that we would add in these standards also everything that would not be present at the moment in the set of standards. And so all the music standards at the moment, they're all structured in the same way under these 8 domains of inquiry. And I will now go a little bit more in detail so that you can see all the 16 standards that currently exist in this pre-college set of standards. So on the domain institutional or school, mission, vision, and context, the first standard is the institutional or school mission and vision are clearly stated. Then the second domain, educational processes, we have 3 standards. The goals of the institution are achieved through the content and structure of the study programs and their methods of delivery. 2.2, the institution offers a range of opportunities for pupils to gain a national and international perspective. 2.3, about the assessment methods, whether they're clearly defined and demonstrate achievement of learning outcomes. Then the third area, pupil profiles. Standard 3.1, clear admissions criteria exist which establish artistic academic suitability of pupils. And 3.2, the institution or school has mechanism to formally monitor and review the progression and achievement of its pupils. And then I just want to show you how it looks in the document itself. You have the first column, which basically listed standards that I'm going through. And then most of the work was actually done more on the second and third column. The second is a list of questions which are important to consider when addressing the standards. And the third one is about the supporting material. So here I leave you a bit of time just to read and see in which way this has been adjusted to match pre-college education. And then I just go on with the next standards. Area 4 is about the teaching staff. So 4.1, members of the teaching staff are qualified for their role and are active as artists, pedagogues, researchers. 4.2, there's sufficient qualified teaching staff to effectively deliver the programs. Then area 5 is about facilities, resources, and support. 5.1, the institution or school has appropriate resources to support pupil learning and delivery of the programs. 5.2, the institutions or schools' financial resources enable successful delivery of the study programs. And 5.3, the institution school has sufficient qualified support staff. Then we have area 6, communication, organization, and decision-making. 6.1, effective mechanisms are in place for internal communication within the institution school. And 6.2, the institution or school has an appropriate organizational structure and clear decision-making processes. I go on with 7, which is about internal quality culture. The institutional school has a strong internal quality culture supported by clear and effective quality assurance and enhancement procedures. Finally, area 8, public interaction. We have 8.1, the institution school engages with wider cultural, artistic, and educational contexts. And finally, 8.2, information provided to the public about the institution or school is clear, consistent, and accurate. And so here again, I just wanted to show you an example of more detailed questions that you can find, which the working group came with. Okay, so I will now say a bit more about the review procedures themselves. Generally, all the music procedures work in the same way. It starts with a self-study, and for this, as it was also illustrated by the speakers, the idea is really to have a sort of, to take time to have a collective reflection process within the institution. That's organized by the institution itself. Ideally, it really gives the place for a lot of dialogues with the internal stakeholders, sometimes already with external stakeholders as well. And what we are expecting is a report, which really is analytical and as reflective as possible. So it should be a sort of honest description of the program or school, but already identifying maybe what are the main challenges or where the institution feels it's good at, and providing this picture to the review team. Then there is a visit of the review team. And so here the idea is that they will compare a little bit with the reports that they received with what they can see on spot. It was explained earlier who they are meeting. It's really also flexible. The institution can propose what kind of meetings should take place. We have a template for this as well. The management, the teachers, pupils, external stakeholders, parents. This is quite flexible. And there is also a moment at the end of the visit where the review team shares its findings already with the institution. So that can also give place to some kind of dialogue between the institution and the review team. And so then a few months later, there is a report produced, and this is really the outcome of the visit. And that contains, so let's say if we take each standard by standard, the team is stating compliance level. So the team is stating whether the pre-college school or the program is fully compliant, substantially compliant, partially compliant, or not compliant with each of the 16 standards that I showed. And the idea really in everything Musik does is to focus on quality enhancement. So the idea is not so much to control, but really to give a lot of advice, to highlight the strong features in the program, and then to give some tailor-made recommendations. In general, for pre-college, we send a team of 3 or 4 peer reviewers. Usually we don't send a student. That's something that is compulsory for us when we review higher music education institutions. In the case of Lugano, for example, there was really a review of other programs as well as higher music education level. And therefore, there was one day at the end of that full visit that was dedicated to the pre-college program. And then there were 3 experts who were already part of the team that also reviewed the higher education programs before, who stayed on for the visit of the pre-college part. While in The Hague, it was really a full pre-college review that lasted 2 days. Sorry. So on the first day, we always make sure there is time for the team. Sometimes these experts, they meet for the first time, so they need time to organize themselves, to prepare how they're going to handle the visit. And overall, there are 2 full days then of different sessions with the different kind of representatives. We also value a lot the visit or attendance to classes, maybe to examinations, sometimes also to jury discussions if that falls at moment of examinations. And so, yes, I've already mentioned the different compliance levels. So I think just to give you the idea, because we are talking exclusively about pre-college reviews, but this is also really part of a system. Maybe one thing that I haven't mentioned is that Musik itself is reviewed by external experts at the European level. And so we are compliant also with a certain set of standards at European level. This is mainly for higher education, but then we also apply the same features to the procedures that we conduct at pre-college level. So that's in a way one of my points here, that it's also strengthens the credibility of the sector to have this agency that is, let's say, recognized as any national quality assurance agency to be able to look into the music programs more specifically. So music is about really taking a proactive, positive approach towards quality issues. We really focus on improvement. We're trying to be as flexible as possible, depending on the country we worked with, the institution we work with. We really put the internationalization at the core of what we do, and also highlight it in what the institutions are doing. It's a way to strengthen the credibility of the sector. And then we are constantly trying to develop and test new approaches to external review, because we want to also be as close as possible to the staff and the students. We don't want to be a sort of bureaucratic procedure that comes on top, but to really try to have as many dialogue about content as possible. So that's all I wanted to share. Sorry. Oops. And let's see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda, for this information. And we already have a question. Wonderful. Richard, please.
Thank you very much. It was fantastic, easy to grasp, and there are a lot of good stuff already in place. I have one specific question, and that's we have a lot of institutions with both the higher music education and with pre-college programs. And when looked upon the bachelor program, it's very important that they have learning outcomes for every year. But we feel quite often that the learning outcomes for the first year in the bachelor is lower than the learning outcomes from the final year in the pre-college program, and it's not recognized. Is it possible to have a review that looks upon this as one line, not two separate boxes, you know, when so it actually fits together? That's my question.
Yes, sure. And I think that's a bit what happened in Lugano. So of course, we would have to see whether a focus would only be on learning outcomes or whether we really look at all the standards. But I think there is indeed added value in having a review that is not only the pre-college part, but also a combination of some programs at the higher education level. Because then that's also why the idea is to have similar people in the team. It could even be a complete team then of 5 members who are reviewing both the bachelor level and the pre-college level. That's absolutely possible, and they could have the specific focus to really look at that and how what is the actual level of the learning outcomes. Yeah.
Thank you. Matthias.
Yeah, one small but important question. What is the price for applying for and running through a peer review?
Yes, I have to say it depends. But I think in general, when we work at higher education level, it's around 18,000 euros. And that usually does not include the travel and subsistence of the experts. And so that's why, I mean, if the review has a bit of a smaller scale, and we always try to see with the institutions how the price can possibly be reduced. The idea is also that if it's actually combined with other programs, if you have more programs, the cost is not much higher. We even more or less apply the same price for 1, 2, 3 programs. So in general, it's more, let's say, interesting financially for an institution to go for more programs. That's something that's good to keep in mind. In some countries, we've also tried to have one team of experts that would visit different schools, so that there are also some some savings that can be done in the travel of the peers, or in their fee if they combine 2 visits in the same week, for example. So we are trying to explore as much as possible ways to reduce the cost for institutions, but of course music also has to be self-sustainable based on the review fees. So that explains.
We have other questions. Maybe we could talk a little about the review people that are in the review team, as we have a broad variety of experts within the reviewers, peer reviewers. There are also sort of pre-college experts. Is that right, Linda?
Yes, indeed. I mean, we always basically anyone can apply to become a peer reviewer, and then there are certain criteria. And one of the elements we ask is, of course, the expertise of these persons. What is their expertise in a musical field, and then what is their expertise also outside music, in, let's say, more management, etc. And so we do have a part of our pool with people who are experienced at the pre-college level. And of course, that's also something where we can always expand our list of people. Institutions are also encouraged to make some suggestions for experts. We do organize a training every year in November. And so ideally, if we know that a pre-college institution would like to be reviewed next year, then we would already select the team this year and ask the peers to attend the training in November. And we will always have a sort of mix on the team between really experienced peer reviewers and possibly 1 or 2 newcomers.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions, or maybe some points that you want to discuss that you find especially interesting? Matthias, yeah, sorry, you're again.
New hand.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I think it was really interesting to hear from both Hague and Lugano about the strategic use of the review, both internally at your own schools, but also nationally in the national system, which are both, I think, are important points in such a process of a review. But I would like to elaborate on that. What about internationally? Stefan was talking a little about the international side of it. But how can, and because the pre-college sector is, like Christoph was telling, the status of pre-college is regarded as a free time activity, and that's a struggle, a challenge that we most of us more or less have. How can a peer review and a report, how can that be used in a broader sense for raising the status of pre-college? How can we as schools use it, and how can Musik actually help in recognizing the pre-college sector as, in fact, a more or less formal part of, or at least an important part of music education?
Yeah, it's a very important question. Thank you, Matthias. As we were talking of the pre-college programs, often feeling in the position of the in-between. maybe Linda or Jacques, you want to?
Well, I think it might be interesting to hear a bit more from the schools in how it can really be used as a tool. Do you go somewhere with the report, or how this really work? I think formally for us, what we can see is that it depends a lot on the countries. I think usually a very basic example, it has helped some institutions when a team came and mentioned that, one standard, for example, about the facilities, the school was not compliant with the standard about facilities because they didn't have a proper building. And we have seen some cases in which the school was able to go to the ministry or the local authority and show the report and say, look, international experts said that this is not compliant, and this has helped in a certain way. So I think the fact that music is also gaining more and more status internationally might be a good thing then for the recognition of the review as such.
Thank you, Linda. Christoph?
Yeah, thank you. In our case, it was very important to have this national coherence between music schools and music universities. So in some way, we didn't have a public mandate, but we decided to do our work, and at the end, in some way, politics had to recognize what we did. So, and I think sometimes you have to go ahead and try to oblige other people to recognize what you did. So I'm quite confident that we will be able also in our region to get the status of a formal education. So it's already part of the federal constitution. So people voted on that, and our region we had 75% of people voting for that. So which is a huge result, and so we need to convince politics to respect the decision of the people which voted. But it's difficult for a single school. You need to create alliances. But I'm sure also Musik and AEC could help with that and underlining the importance of a pre-college education, because why we see at our university, it's for people who don't come from a pre-college program, it's getting more and more impossible to enter a university.
Thank you, Christoph. Yes, and I think already through the special standards for pre-college programs, that's something that quite shows the uniqueness and the special features of these programs. Alf, you want to add or?
Yes, one thing, it is clearly stated that review for pre-college has no formal status, but in higher music education you need the accreditation, and the quality enhancement there is very strict, and if you don't meet the standards, the authorities can close you down, So how do we get from where we are now to have accreditation of the pre-college programs that really leads into the higher music education? Like we heard from Christoph, you put some standards there so it's not for two students and not for too low level. So how do we get this forward in the European level? I don't expect any answers to that, but it's a question how we get from where we are to a place where the specific phase of pre-college and the quality there should be recognized with the same importance than inside the higher music education.
Thank you, Alf. Yes, maybe no answers, but maybe ideas or thoughts that someone wants to share. Yes, Christoph again, please.
Sorry, I don't want to monopolize, but
No, please.
in some way, the fact that we did our Swiss label, so this is a kind of accreditation. There are criteria there's a procedure and you get the label or you don't get it. So I think this could be also a way to start to have not only the review but also a kind of European label. And our Swiss label is not 100% current with the music standards, but it's mainly based on the standards. So there's not really a big difference in standards, but on final criteria to decide the attribution of the label.
Thank you, Christoph. Some other thoughts, maybe? Yeah, Matthias.
And because pre-college sector is not, at least not yet, formalized nationally within the countries, I think you in Switzerland have perhaps come the furthest in that sense, having a Swiss label. We should all have our national labels. But you're also talking about accreditation, which I believe also can be done through the Musik for pre-college, but the accreditation now will not have a formal value for pre-college. But how could you in Musik, is it possible, this is just an idea, how could you in a sense combine a peer review for pre-college with an actual accreditation, a European accreditation for pre-college? Is that possible? Is it?
Well, actually, in a way, this is already what we do. So if we look at what happens at a higher education level, we conduct procedures that are called quality enhancement reviews. And then we also conduct accreditation. And the only difference between the two is that based on these compliance the statements with each of the standards, the review team then also makes a proposal to the Music Board, saying we propose based on all these compliance statements that the institution or the program is accredited or is accredited with conditions. These are mainly the outcomes. And so the way we see it, because we focus a lot on quality enhancement, is that the two processes are very close to each other. There is still, for a quality enhancement review or for an accreditation, there will be a statement for each standard, whether the institution or the program meets that. And so I would say the missing link, but it doesn't matter whether it's at pre-college level or at higher education level, is the fact that in some countries, our agency is recognized. So if we decide on this accreditation, it has the value of a government or a national agency. And in many countries, even at higher education as well, there are still obstacles. They are not recognizing necessarily our decision. And so in that case, we have to sometimes make contracts with national agency so that the procedure is recognized. We send the report to the national agency first, the national agency approves it, and then it has legal value. And I think it's a bit the same at pre-college level. Let's say we are able to deliver accreditations. We are not checked by a body for this particular part of our work, but we are checked by an external body at higher education level. So there is some recognition of what we do in terms of how we do it, but then it's more in terms of how this is recognized legally by each country. And this, we're trying to work on it as much as possible, but it's a lot about national legislations and sometimes countries also being a bit protective and wanting that it's only happens through their own national agency. And so that's maybe where the institutions themselves can also push to actually tell to their governments that it's really important that they can choose with which agency they can work, or depending on the evaluation system in your countries, I think it's always possible go to your contact persons there and to discuss whether a collaboration between them and Musik would be possible, or that they would recognize an accreditation by Musik. I think in all countries we had to push, and then in some it works, in others not.
They are as diverse as the cantons in Switzerland, at least.
But then just short that. But if in the coming 2 or 3 years, if there were 50 or more pre-college institutions that apply for a peer review, then that would make a more powerful voice, both internationally in Europe, that each institution can use nationally in their own countries.
Sure, indeed, it's also a question of numbers. Yeah.
That's a wonderful final statement, Matthias. Take it from here, since it is now 10:30. I would really like to thank you all for attending today, for your important questions and the contributions to this really important discussion, which will not end today, of that I'm sure. And I want especially to thank the two speakers today who shared their experiences. And thank you to the board and the staff of Musik for organizing the webinar. It has been an honor to be able to moderate you today. So the recording will be shared on the website. And if you look at the website, there are other webinars that might be interesting for you, such as involving students or balancing internal and external quality assurance. So it's always worth having a look at it. We would love your feedback on this webinar, or if you have further suggestions, such as this initiative now, we are always open to this. Thanks again to Matthias Lundqvist for the initiative of this webinar. And thank you all for attending. And I wish you a lovely Valentine's Day. Thank you.